Hi, I'm Brian Boggs. I'm here at Pinecroft Woodworking School in Berea. I'm up here working with some college students on a couple of projects, doing some of my own work as an artist in residence. But I thought I'd shoot a video on some of the Spokeshave work I've been doing for the last 40 years. I started chair making in 1982, and about 1983, 1984, I started messing around with Spokeshave design, designing some pretty rustic wooden and brass prototypes. Didn't make my first all metal Spokeshave until about 1987. That's a long time ago. This is the first one that I did that was primarily metal. I just took some bar stock. I had a hacksaw and a file and a couple of drills. That was about it for tools that I had to make this with. I had started out with a Kuntz Spokeshave that I had been using for a year before I started trying to design my own. I had spent so much time working on getting that shave to work like I thought it should that I thought, heck, I could just start all over for that matter. So I did with this one. And it works well. I've been using it obviously for almost 40 years. And the only problem that I had with it, or thing I didn't like about it, is it's slightly off balance. The handles were a little bit too far back. And what that means is that it kind of flops down when you start to use it. Not a big deal. It's pretty easy to compensate for the off balance weight of it or off balance hand position with just a little bit of hand pressure forward. But I still didn't like that. I wanted to have something that just felt like it was an extension of my hands and it naturally laid down in the perfect position to cut wood. So I did some drawing and fiddling around and got a couple of bars of brass stock and made this one. I still didn't have a lot of woodworking tools, or metalworking tools. Had a hacksaw again and a file and did the main shaping, and you can see this texture on a hand cranked tool grinder. And I like the way that came out, so I just left the texture of it. One of the things that's different with this tool is the handles actually put the blade above the bench when it's resting. Also, the chip breaker goes all the way down to the bottom, to the sole down here, to just shy of the edge of the cutting blade. And what that does is it turns the chip forward as soon as it's cut, giving me really nice control of it. And so with this one, I'm able to go in and come right back up with very little tear out, even though I'm cutting against the grain here. And this one, I rounded the sole just slightly front to back with wooden handles on it. It makes a nice tool to use, and it's certainly been my favorite half round Spokeshave since I made it. It's just a sweet little tool. Unfortunately, I didn't have great brazing skills. The seam and the handles isn't great, so I've had to be gentle with it. But there is a threaded rod holding the two pieces of brass together. But this one was really encouraging, and when I started teaching classes, all of my students wanted to buy one, and I didn't really have a facility to produce these efficiently enough. I mean, I don't know what that cost me to make, but it was ridiculous. It was just a kind of labor of love, something I wanted to do, and an exercise to really help me understand how Spokeshaves work and what's possible in Spokeshave design to get chip control that's nearly effortless. At this point, I was also experimenting with a lot of different tool steels. This one is A11, but I played with A2, S5, I think it was T1, M4, W2, and everything I could get my hands on to see which one performed better from a standpoint of holding an edge, but also how well and easily it took an edge. What did it take to sharpen it? The A11 is great for holding an edge, but get ready to spend some time when you need to sharpen it, because it is not friendly to the stone. So I finally got some encouragement and some direction about casting, and with that decided to play around with making my own Spokeshaves for production, or as a production item that I would sell. And this is what I came up with. It's a slightly lighter version than the original handmade one, but still a good chip breaker. I also put the ears straight across so that any lateral movement doesn't make the cap go out of center. And otherwise, it's pretty much the same, but just a nice lightweight. This was done by investment casting, and I would just buy have the castings made and polish them in my shop. The handles I had made in California, the blades made by a bladesmith out west. This is all stainless steel, but I traded the cap out for brass. I was really surprised how much difference the hardness of the cap made and how easy it was to get just the right tension on the blade. It needed to be tight enough so that it didn't move when you're using it, but not so tight that it was hard to tap into adjustment without having to loosen the screw. What happened with the harder stainless steel caps is it would either be tight or loose and almost nothing in between. Some of the stainless steel ones, I would put a washer on it. This one has a steel washer, but if you put a nylon washer under a screw head, it makes a huge difference in how easy it is to get just the right tension as you squish into the softness of that nylon. But the brass by itself was good enough to allow me really nice control of this one. And I've been using this one for at least 30 years. I think I made some 200 of these, and I, of course, being a maker, I always had extra ones around, so I turned some of them into scrapers. What I did was just turn the blade upside down, and I filled out the back to bring the throat closed, because when you turn the blade upside down, the edge is flush with the back, not the front. So you've got to make up for that 1/8 inch difference of blade thickness with something that pushes that edge forward. And then I would turn a slight burr on it very carefully. Even though this is A2 steel and it's around Rockwell 61, it will, because A2 is so tough, if you're really careful, it will take a burr and make a really nice scraper. This one has the edge set back about 85 degrees so that rather than the turned forward angle that you typically have with a scraper and the raised grain or the crushing of fibers that you get typically with a scraper for heavy cuts, this one cuts very much like the other ones, but because the burr is tiny, the chip is broken over by the bevel so quickly that you can get a finish even in a situation. Oh, that's not my, that's the straight bottom one. This is a curve. This is the curved bottom one. But even where I'm coming up against the grain like this, I can generally get very, very close to a finish with this tool. So after about 200 of those made in my shop, felt like I was ready to hand it over. And so I was introduced to Leonard Lee of Lee Valley Tools. This was back in the 90s at some point. And then they signed a licensing agreement with them, and they made these for a couple of years. I hadn't made a flat one up to this point because the flat ones available from Record were functional enough that it wasn't at this time worth my effort to start over and redesign the whole thing. But after using these blades or these shaves for several years, the Record just wasn't cutting it. It was really the difference between picking up one of these and picking up a Record shave, no matter how well I tuned that shave, the balance just wasn't there. So I started playing around with flat bottom spoke shaves and made this one as my first one, and it was pretty good, but the balance was a little off. And I made this one, and the balance was a whole lot better, but there was a third one that I made that I don't have. I actually sent it to Lee Valley to propose that they make it there and sell them, but they were ready to go on their own way and made their own tool, which is available now. It's a nice spoke shave, and it's got the adjustments here. These holes are just because I could buy a blade for a Record to replace the Record blade without having to have a custom-made blade for these, so I didn't mind the holes there. This didn't work out for Lee Valley Manufacturing, but just about that time, Tom Lee Nielsen called up and wanted me to design a line of spoke shaves for them. So that's when I designed this one. This one is a little bit more refined in its shape, I wanted it to balance as if it were just a tube. And I really like the short blade here, but that's not the way it came. The blade was, when they're new, they're about an inch longer than this. This is, I'm on about the third blade with this Spokeshave. I actually do wear them out. I've got a drawer full of worn out Spokeshave blades that I've gone through. In 40 years of making chairs all the time, you're going to keep your blades sharp. You're actually going to wear them out. But this one works great. This is a round bottom Spokeshave. There's a round bottom, a flat bottom, and then a concave version that I don't have here. But the three of them are doing well, and I see pictures of these being used all over the world, so it's kind of cool to see my Spokeshave out there so many places. But this one works also. The idea was the chip breaker was very, very low to give me good chip control. They've changed that since and backed it out for better chip clearance, but the original one had a really low front edge of the cap iron so that you'd have a good chip breaking action there. You heard it chattering here, which means I'm going against the grain. I'm taking too heavy a cut. So I'm just going to tap this back a little bit. That's a little better. Too much. Oh, I don't have it tightened down. So the only thing that this one lacks that I think a Spokeshave could have, or at least at that time, was some way of mechanical adjustment. And when I designed these other shaves, I asked everybody that I knew that used Spokeshaves a lot, and every one of them said that they just take the adjusters off and throw them away. They never use them. They're in the way. And I had already gotten to the point where I like to hold, if I'm looking at a chair part and I see something that needs touching up, I like to be able to hold the shave just like this and then come in and shave and not worry about something digging into my hand here like the adjusters. So I spent a lot of time. I don't know how many hours I've spent designing and making Spokeshaves, but it's been a lot. It's really helped me understand the tool about as much as you can understand it. I am still learning a few things, and I am still playing with new ideas for Spokeshaves, but it's been a lot of fun playing with these, and it's been particularly fun to see these out in use everywhere. So if you don't have one of these already, Lee Nielsen carries them, makes them. It's a good tool.